second webinar in a three-part series we dubbed as Queena Talks. Today, we will be talking about time management and study habits. And I'm sure it's a very interesting topic and one foremost in our minds today as we traverse the new normals of having school virtually. To start off, may I request Father King Bellarmida to uh, pray with us for a successful webinar. Father King.
Yes, yes, thank you. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. My dear brothers and sisters, fellow Judenites, as we gather together full of thanksgiving for the blessings that we have received, we cannot ignore the fact that many of our countrymen are suffering because of the floods, of the rains, we cannot say that we are blessed and they are not blessed because of that. So we join them in their suffering, at least in prayer, and we implore the Lord to please stop all these calamities sagad na ang aming mga kababayan, and so uh, uh, please, yeah, we pray to we put them into our hearts today as we do this webinar. But of course, we ask the Lord to bless also us, all those who would participate in this webinar, as we also address the concerns for the mental health of those of our students, our teachers, and everybody else who are doing this as we continue with our education during this time of pandemic. So we invoke the intercession of our Blessed Mother, of our patron, Saint Jude Thaddeus, that God may, in His love and mercy, bless us, protect us, and guide us. Glory to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, never shall be, world without end. Amen. Saint Jude Thaddeus, pray for us. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy
Son
Spirit.
of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you very much, Father King. We ask Father Ricky Miranda of St. Jude Catholic School to give us his welcome remarks.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. We would always say, sometimes we would say, in God's time. Or we would say, time is gold. Time. I had a very favorite song when I was in high school. Time is my friend. I forgot the whole lyrics, but I would always remember the tune of it. And the last part would be is, time is my friend every time we meet. Every time we met is tender and sweet. Sweet songs to sing. Many things to do. Good.
Kantahin mo kaya, Padre Ricky?
Nalimot ko na eh. But we always sing it during Mass, ano? And if we would speak about time, there are many ways of defining it, using it, ano? And kagabi when I was thinking, what was the way of seeing time, ano? Or calculating time, na pumasok sa isip ko yung, alam yung sand, ano yung tawag doon? Sand battle ba yun? Yung i-flip mo, babagsak, that's 10 minutes, 5 minutes, ano? At when I was playing with it, when I was a kid, parang ang tagal ng bumagsak, gusto kong bumagsak na lahat. Pero same lang naman yon sa sarilo, pero kung minsan tingnan na rin ang bilis. No? And with this pandemic, we also deal with time in a different way. During hindi ko naman masabing normal noon, yung normal ngayon, but even during my time when I was high school, I was college, I was as a priest. Now, it's the same time that's ticking. It's the same seconds in nadagdagan, pero the way we use it, the way we are used by time is different. Ano? Sometimes we are stressed out, sometimes we feel good. We just need time. We would say, I just need time. Pero wala akong time. Ano ba yon? I need time but wala akong time. No? And with this pandemic, students, even parents, have the different way of using time now. We work at home, we study at home. Every time we are at home, every time. No? And how do we manage time? I think this is also a good topic now. Ang dami tayong naririnig, ang daming nangyayari, ano? And it's all about the new normal. It's everything about new because it's new to us to be at home all the time. We would say we would have all the time pero kunti ang time, bitin pa rin. Di na nga tayo natra-traffic. Di na nga tayo lumalabas ng bahay. Pero parang bakit? Kulang pa rin ang time. Well, I think this is one way of, I don't know, knowing and listening to a very good speaker. No? So I would like to welcome everyone. The alumni, the parents, students, employees are here listening to listen to this webinar on time management and study habits in the new normal. So welcome everyone. I hope we will enjoy this talk and not only enjoy it, but also make use of it in this new normal situation that we are in. Again, welcome and good morning.
Thank you, Father E. Up next is our dedicated alumni president, Mr. John C., who will give us his opening remarks and why Queena Talks was organized.
Good morning again. I hope everyone is in a good place and is healthy and well. Thank you very much for attending this very important webinar. This is the second webinar of the Queena Talk series, but really our first collaboration between the St. Jude Catholic School Alumni Association and the Parents Auxiliary Groups of St. Jude Catholic School, and of course the school itself. Our first webinar on mental health was well attended and well received, that people are clamoring for more of the same discussions. I'm sure Queena is kind of excited and confused at the same time why we're generating so much interest with her talks. But it's a testament to how well the first webinar came out. You know? And even Father King, who's the principal of St. Jude Catholic School, expresses appreciation and realization that there's much to be examined and worked on at the school level. We hope to continue our collaborative dialogue with the school to support any initiatives towards improving the school's ability to support our students. We're grateful for the warm reception, and we will work on how to implement future plans. This time, we tackled the challenges of working effectively at home without the supervised environment of a school. Time. It could be our best weapon or our worst enemy. The issue of personal motivation will always be forefront in our ability to work excellently or be doomed to mediocrity. I'm hoping that Queena Lichua will be able to give us the practical tips to assist parents and students win the war versus procrastination or risk becoming like sloths. Actually, almost everyone could benefit from learning about how to manage time. Your Alumni Association will continue to work with the school and its parent auxiliary groups for future collaboration. In this regard, we are grateful for the support and leadership of your PAC presidents, Attorney Irene Phoenix Mauricio, the high school PAC president, Michelle Yvonne Chon, the elementary PAC president, Elizabeth Colin Chu, the early childhood development PAC president. We're likewise grateful to Father Rocky Aquino and Father King Bellarmida for the support coming from the school and the technical support coming from Kenneth Raiko and the SJCSI team. And from the AAA side, of course, we recognize the hardworking Jayan C. Ali and Wilson C., who have put a lot of time to make these events a reality. We are equally grateful to Queena Lichua for sharing her valuable time and expertise with us today. Her presentation style has been forthright but filled with real experiences and wisdom, aside from being quite captivating. It's no joke holding people's attention for 2 hours, which is what happened the last time. Today will be a bit shorter though. Enjoy and learn today. May it help each other and everyone with their individual challenges and journey. 加油崇德，加油成就. Thank you.
Thank you, AA President Johnny. Today's topic is time management and study habits in the new normal. Let us lend our ears to our elementary PAD President, Mrs. Michelle Yvonne Chon, as she explains why this topic was chosen.
Good day. Good morning, everyone. I hope you are all doing well today. We are having the second part of the three-part webinar for Queena Talks. I am Michelle Yvonne Chon, currently the PAG President for Elementary Department. I'd like to take this opportunity to extend my heartfelt thanks to the SJCS community, SJCS alumni for inviting us to take part in these webinars. This pandemic, our so-called normal, people in all walks of life have been affected too. As we feel that education should not be put on hold, it led us to this remote online learning. Children, as we know, have looked at online for gaming, watching videos, for time or relaxation. It's imperative that our kids learn how to manage their time by having the correct study habits. Hence the topic for today's webinar. We hope both kids and parents learn a lot from today's Queena Talks Part 2. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, PAG President Yvonne. To introduce our distinguished guest speaker is a well-loved trustee of the SJCSAA board, Mr. Wilson C.
Good morning, everyone. It is my honor and privilege to introduce our speaker today, who happens to be a very good friend of mine. We have known each other for more than 35 years now, and I've seen how she has helped parents and students in more ways than one. She graduated from the Ateneo de Manila University, BS Mathematics, summa cum laude. She has a master's degree in counseling psychology and a doctorate degree in clinical psychology from the same university, where she is now a full professor. A licensed psychologist, she writes the All in the Family column for the Philippine Daily Inquirer and has authored books on math, popular science, education, parenting, family and teen issues, mental health, family businesses, inspirational stories. A board member, speaker, and consultant for schools, government, civic groups, and family businesses. She also consults for the Department of Education and the Department of Science and Technology, and sits on the board of Business and Academia. During this pandemic, she has conducted several webinars for students, parents, teachers, civil groups, businesses, on online teaching and learning, resilience and mental health, math and science, best practices for family businesses, family literacy, among others. She has garnered various recognition, including the 10 Outstanding Young Men, the Outstanding Women in the Nation's Service, the Metro Bank Foundation Outstanding Teachers, the DOST's Great Men and Women of Science, the Outstanding Young Scientists, among others. She was also featured in Singapore Heritage Center's Southeast Asian Personalities of Chinese Descent and in Asia Inc. magazine's Who's Hot in Asia. Friends, let's all welcome Dr. Queena Lichua.
Thank you so much, Wilson, and good morning to everyone. We're so glad now that the weather is so much better. I know classes have been suspended, work has been suspended, and as our dear fathers have reminded us, many of our countrymen and women are still suffering affects all Ulysses. Uh, and in one of the articles I wrote after Yolanda, the good thing with what happened now is the emergency alerts were heeded and evacuations were done. Some of my students, those who had been evacuated, our school is taking also proactive steps to ensure that those whose homes were destroyed in either the flood or the storms are actually out of harm's way. So as of this point, everybody appears to be safe, physically safe, but the ramifications of this typhoon, especially the risk that COVID will spread to crowded shelters, is something very much in our minds. So hopefully our leadership and we ourselves will also help in also being more proactive the next time this happens. Typhoons are always going to come because of climate change. The storms are going to get worse, the floods are going to get worse. And we need to actually have proactive plans in place rather than react every time something happens. So we need to do both. And that's one thing I keep on telling my students, that part of having an education is knowing when to predict that something is going to happen. That's the power of math, that's the power of science. And once you know what can happen, once the predictions are there, you can also actually act. If we just keep on reacting, things will not really get better. So I will start sharing the screen. And okay, this should be the, let me see, where is the, yeah. Okay, this one will not be as serious as last time, but I will start just a little bit on mental health because I got a couple of messages from St. Jude, both of whom I don't know. One says he's an alumnus and the other one says she is a mother, and they missed the mental health episode. I told them, of course, I cannot repeat the whole thing, but what just very, very quickly, um, one of this question came out. So we are so stressed out. We have all of these things. How can we cope? So last time I told you that we cannot avoid stress. We have to manage stress. So we calm our children, we calm ourselves, which means we focus on what we can do, which is work and study routine, which I'm going to talk about today, honing skills, which I'm going also to talk about today, and family communication. But if anxiety and depression get really, really unmanageable, then professional help is needed. I also told parents that we need to keep things in perspective. So not everybody is doing badly. Some people are actually thriving. Some of my students are doing better now than they were doing before the pandemic, although a lot claim that they're mentally more stressed. So it also depends on their mindset. It depends on their resilience and many other factors. And the way to manage anxiety, this is my slide last time. We look at worries in alternative ways. We do physical exercise. We seek nature. We connect face to face. This is so important. I will say more about this now. We limit alcohol, caffeine, nicotine, gaming, social media. Gaming and social media are two of the biggest time wasters that our youth are dealing with today. And we need to have deep sleep, quality of sleep, quantity, seek support even from pets. I would encourage, if you can, to have pets at the house. It also encourages compassion and going beyond the self for our students who are usually focused on themselves. So caring for something else, a vulnerable creature, is actually a good one. And again, if needed, professional help and medications. And I told the parents, if they're really in trouble, they can try to look at this. And if they're really, really, really in trouble, they need to go and get professional help ASAP. So we discussed this last week. I cannot do so now. Okay, so that's the one for mental health. Let's now go to time management and study habits. All of these are verbatim questions from my previous talks, from schools that are similar to yours. I think you will know what schools I've done more than 40 schools, 40. So 30 plus of them are private schools and the others are public schools. So these are from the private schools. So the first one, how can I encourage our child to exercise? She's on screen the whole day. She also keeps rubbing her eyes. The first thing, no child should be on screen the whole day. No ifs and no buts. If children tell us that that they are on screen the whole day because they have classes the whole day. That is not true. Classes before used to be 7:30 to possibly 3:30 to 4:30. I'm not so sure about St. Jude, but I think not even St. Jude, and you're one of the most hardworking schools I know. Not even St. Jude would have straight screen time from 7:30 to 3:30, 4:30. That is impossible. Majority of schools I've talked to, their 1 hour class is cut down to 20 to 30 minutes a day. And most schools do not even go beyond 3 to 4 subjects a day. Many schools start at 8 o'clock and end by 12 or 1, or maybe the latest would be 2, a little bit of 3, but if they end at 3, it means they have a huge stretch of time that they ensure that the kids are not supposed to be on screen. So some schools will have 8 o'clock to 11. Then there is a big gap, say 11 to 1. Then they start again 11 to 3, 1 to 3. So in short, no child, if your child tells you that she has to be on screen the entire day because of work, that is not true. So they're doing other things aside from work. The rubbing her eyes is, of course, many of my students have dry eyes. They have to go to the ophthalmologist, and these are college students. Dami-dami nilang dry eyes. It's because you're staring at the screen the whole day. Of course, you're going to have dry eyes. You don't even blink. If you don't blink, then voila, the eyes become worse. So not children are supposed to physically exercise. And the way to do this would be put exercise, physical exercise, as part of the schedule. No ifs, again, and no buts. It is children should not exercise if they are in the mood to exercise. Most of the time, they're not in the mood. Okay, so exercise has to be as automatic as brushing our teeth. So I tell my college students, when you wake up in the morning, you actually eat breakfast and you brush your teeth, you don't even think about it. It has to be routine. Motivation is overrated. Okay? We keep on saying, oh, we want to do this, we plan to do this. Why do you think New Year's resolutions seldom work? So you have to structure the important things in your day so that you don't think twice about doing it. That is the secret actually of success. And there are many things we don't want to do. If we don't have any structure, we will just stay in bed the whole day. There's so many things, we don't want to do. I tell my students, before the pandemic, many of you didn't even want to come to class, but you had to come to class. It was automatic. You have a 9 o'clock class, so you have to leave the house at 7 o'clock. Yes, you're sleepy, etc., but you do it. Lalo na kayo, you're not even college. College, minsan, they don't even go to school. But a school like St. Jude, I know practically everybody goes to school. So some of your kids might not feel like doing it, but it's their routine. They wake up at 6 o'clock, they go. So why is there now a problem with kids going to school? This is so ironic because when I talk to public schools, they want to go to school. When I talk to private schools, majority still like going to school. But there is a troublesome minority that doesn't seem to want to attend even live class. They have so many excuses. For instance, this is from a parent. Because there were no classes from March until July, my son cannot wake up for 8 a.m. He gets grouchy. What can we do? Minsan nagugulat ako sa mga tinatanong sa akin eh. So I think you kind of know what, my son cannot wake up for 8 a.m. He gets grouchy. What can we do? Is there a choice? What can the mother do? So this one actually came out in a Q&A. So I told the mother, what do you want me to say? Actually, if you ask me something like this, the school demands that the son wake up for 8 a.m. Some public schools actually start at 7 a.m. 6:30 pa nga yung iba. So I told the mother when this came out, what do you really want me to say? I said, your son really needs to meet the demands of the school. If your son cannot attend 8 a.m., either he goes to another school, maybe an alternative school wherein they can choose their class time and they can start class at 1 p.m. By the way, this son is in high school. Or I said, try to wake up earlier. So I told the mother one reason why he cannot wake up for 8 a.m. is possibly because he doesn't get enough sleep. Very likely, he sleeps at midnight or later than midnight. And I am certain it is not because he's studying. We know that. It is because he's doing other things. So, sinabi ko sa nanay, but I told the mother when she asked this, I said, look at what she did, because there were no classes from March till July. It meant in that huge span of no classes, the son already developed bad habits. So the structure was gone. So what we have to do now is think about the structure. We teachers are always very worried after summer break because we know that in summer break structures are relaxed. And in the first week of class, students are not at their best. And we're worried about that. Some teachers actually say, okay, we won't do anything in the first week. Sabi ko, that's making the structure worse. So ako talaga, the first day, and as you know, I'm a stricter teacher than most. I would tell the students, I know you're not even in the mood for learning, but there's no time. Your parents work very hard. Our tuition is not cheap. Let's maximize the first day. When I do that, more than half comply. The others, not so much, but well, I help them. I actually help them. We talk about procrastination, etc., etc., etc. But again, what is the point of my saying this? That structure has been lost. So it is so much easier to develop a bad habit than developing a good one. So what we have to do now in order to maximize time would be to put structures in place to enable us to do the things that are relevant, even if we don't necessarily enjoy them, like learning. Some people do enjoy learning. Many others do not. The ones who enjoy learning, wala silang problema ngayon. The ones who do not, the ones who procrastinated before, they're the ones in trouble now. So later on, I will tell you that many of these things are also happening pre-pandemic, not just now. Our house is not big enough for separate rooms for our two kids. They get distracted if they study together. I told the mother, before the pandemic, we would have 40 students in a class. Sometimes I have more than 80 students in a class. They are together. So I said, if they are together and they're studying together, they did not say that they were distracted. Bakit ngayon, dalawa lang yung mga bata, magkatabi, nagdi-distracted pa. So logically, it doesn't make, so many excuses are popping out because of the pandemic. So the mother will say, kasi katabi niya yung kuya niya, ate niya, nag-aaway sila. So yan na yon. So don't blame the pandemic. Possibly don't even blame the house. Blame the relationships and blame the study habits of your kids. So it has nothing to do much with the house. It doesn't have anything to do with the pandemic. It is just a relationship among your kids that if they're together as siblings, learning is not. So what you have to attack would be the source of the problem. So what do I do here? I keep on telling parents who say this. Sabi ko, buti nga, 2 kids lang. In the public schools, they have 12 kids and they're cramped in a room and nakakayanan nila. So, if we don't have separate rooms for 2 kids, what we can do would be, we actually ask them to have headphones and earphones. My students say they use that. My students also, I don't use earphones and headphones, as you can see, because I'm very, I've learned to focus. My husband is actually here with me now, and he knows I'm doing a webinar for you. So he cannot have a webinar. So we have the structure in place. Kung sino yung kailangan magsalita ngayon, siya yung gagamit ng Wi-Fi. Yung isa, magtatrabaho. So we have learned how to do it, and I can actually teach classes, etc. When the helper is doing the vacuum, which is maingay, when my dog is barking, I can actually tune out because I've learned to do that. So I've told students, you have to learn to do the same. Hopefully this pandemic ends soon when they go into the workplace, at least for my college students, kayo, when they go to the upper years or when they go to college, there's going to be a bigger world. They cannot expect the environment to suit them. They have to adjust to the environment. But one big thing now, if you want a practical strategy, put in headphones. If you have headphones, look at call centers. There are 100 people in one room and they're all talking at the same time. And they have headphones and they're fine. So, they can't be distracted because they have to do it. So distraction is one thing our kids have to learn to deal with. They're easily distracted. And the big reason for that is because of early exposure to technology. Okay, so that one I will talk a little bit again. And the most important thing, ito na talaga yung problema. How do we keep our children away from YouTube, FB, and make them focus on its school time? That is the real problem. Okay, so it is not the external factors. It is the internal strength and the internal ability to focus. So we have lost, not we, our children, especially, and sadly, there's a gender disparity here. Boys are 10 times more likely to get ADD and ADHD than women. There is a genetic component, but a big part of it is also social and upbringing. This is a funny cartoon which I showed some students at Ateneo de Cebu, for instance, when I was giving a talk to the grades 6 and 7. So distance learning, before it was in person, ganito na. virtual, ganito, and virtually impossible would be ganito. So I asked the kids, why do you think this is virtually impossible? So it had so many nice answers, these kids. So basically, this is a very young kid. This is possibly in prep, nursery, grade 1, grade 2. So hindi siya high school. So if it's nursery and grade 1, I really think there should be some amount of parental supervision. You cannot just let the kid be online all the time. And usually if you do that, when they're very, very young, the kids they will not learn. They will not be online learning. They'll be doing other things. So this one is virtually impossible. There's no structure here at all. Look at what's happening. So I elicited the need for structure from the students. So this is what I tell my students. I show them this slide. Before, there are external structures. Whether you like it or not, you go to school. Agpo ka pa, if you're very lucky, you don't have to drive. If you're very lucky, you don't even have to take the public transportation. So your driver drives you to school and you sleep along the way. I said, that is a structure that forces you to go to school. Today, we are all doing it from the house. So there's no structure. And you don't have the habits. Yan ang problema. Externally, walang structure. Internally, wala ring structure. How can you even do anything? You can't learn. You can't do anything worthwhile. So you have to make learning a habit, not only if you're in the mood. Once it is a habit, you do it whether you like it or not. Again, I tell students, even if you're only studying from home, I cannot believe I have to tell college students this, but this is what I tell them. I tell them they have to change into school attire because horribly, many of the college professors tell me, this is not in my class because again, I'm stricter. Other college professors tell me they're so shocked that they see the students attending live class in their pajamas and not even decently attired. That is horrible. So I tell them change into school or attire, at least something. I said at least on top, change something at least on top. You can't really attend class in your pajamas. And this is also funny. Many college students, I hope this is probably not St. Jude because your students are actually have better study habits than majority of the Philippine population. That's one praise I can give you. Major St. Jude, we're happier. Your students in my classes at least, the St. Jude students practically have perfect attendance. They don't really complain as much. So it's actually a joy to have many of the St. Jude students in my classes. But just in case your student is your kid is something like this, please tell your child to put the gadget on the table and not on the bed. Can you imagine that? Some people don't even get out of bed, naka-pajama, and then nakasandal, they're lying down, and then they're putting some of them go to live class in their iPhone, so nakaganyan. And then they drop off to sleep. What kind of routine is that? And make a realistic schedule of tasks and follow it. This is St. Jude. St. Judenites, some of my Judenites, they have a good schedule of tasks, but they don't follow it. So they show me, ang galing, wake up, ganito, ganito. But then in the middle of it, they can't follow it. Sometimes it's because it's too many tasks. I would say, are you sure it's realistic? 30 minutes to do a paper in philosophy? I said, that's not realistic. You should make 3 to 4 hours for this one. So minsan ako na nagkikritik ng schedule nila. So Judenites, I think you have the habit, but you have to think about smart goals rather than just cramming your day with things. And then many of them, of course, become anxious and depressed. And here we go to the mental health stuff. So they have the desire, but the follow through is harder. We'll talk about SMART goals in a bit. And again, I tell my students, do physical exercise, eat and sleep right. The gadgets, we talked about this last time. And the no procrastination, don't blame the Wi-Fi. Cuento, and I will say their names. Ateneo started doing formally online learning with our summer class. We call it intercession. So we were already doing summer classes as early as July. So for July to August, kami yung medyo one of the first to do summer classes. And I immediately decided I will take an overload because I really want to see how students of different levels did online learning. So I taught the youngest at the time is not yet freshmen. It's sophomores. Wala pang freshmen na pumapasok. So I taught sophomores and I taught the oldest, the grad students. So I had a huge plethora of classes from sophomore all the way to grad students across 3 departments. I wanted to see if there was a difference between management engineering or chemistry or psychology or fine arts or business or ganyan. So marami akong tinuro. And what I found, to my surprise, because I thought the biggest problem would be Wi-Fi. So I was very prepared. Wala kang Wi-Fi, we have many scholars. It's not. Weirdly, and this is just in my classes, weirdly, my top students are those, I will just say their name. So one of the students I talked about is a management engineering student, and she lives in Palawan. Okay, so she's a scholar from a public high school who managed to get into management engineering, one of the top courses in Ateneo. Her name is Macreen Rangel. And Macreen, in the middle of our semester, she got sick and she had to be hospitalized. Takot na takot ako na COVID. And she emailed me and I said, oh, Macreen, the first thing is you have to get well. Don't worry about it. And the good thing with Macreen is she got sick in the middle of the semester. She was doing very well since the first day. So in the middle of the semester, when I looked at her scores, they were good. So I said, Macreen, do not worry. Please, I hope it is not COVID. Get well soon. Pero grabe si Macreen, galing niya. She actually insisted on doing oral exams with her classmates from the hospital. I said, ako pa nagsabi na, Macreen, I don't want you to do it. Gusto niya. So I said, Macreen, are you certain? She was recovering then. I still didn't want her to do anything from the hospital, but I found out from another teacher that she was actually doing a presentation in another class from the hospital bed, which I don't want to happen. So ako, at least, when she got home, and thankfully it wasn't COVID, she was able to do. In short, she was from Palawan. She even got sick. She got sick that she had to be hospitalized. And she's from Palawan. The Wi-Fi there is not the best. And yet, all her requirements, she did it. She did it so well. Rather than from the wealthier students who are here, who didn't get sick at all, who were just in they didn't do as well. They didn't have the structure. Si Macreen, galing niya. Parang, she's one of my favorites up to now. Another one I can say would be Riza. So this one was just last month. Because Ateneo, what we did was we have first quarter, second quarter. So in the first quarter, which is from August to September, I had Riza, she's a chemistry major. And she was doing very well. And I asked her, I said, did you come from Philippine Science, Bisay? Because you're doing very well, you're ganyan. No, she didn't come from Bisay. She came from Pampanga High School. Pampanga. Okay. So Pampanga does not have the best Wi-Fi. Again, in short, the students who don't have the resources that we have actually have the excuses not to do well. And yet they are the ones who are they're topping the private school students. I have very many good private school students. But si Macreen, si Riza, I can tell you so many other students, wala silang excuses. Talagang if you tell them to submit on this day, they don't procrastinate, they do. So they have the structure. And I actually talked to Macreen about it. So she knows that I say her name. Riza actually doesn't know that I said her name. Macreen knows I've said her name. She's quite proud of it. So I told her, Macreen, wow, so many of the more privileged students can learn from you. So they have the structure, they have the routine. So again, it is not the Wi-Fi. Those kids with no Wi-Fi, we give them learning packets, we give them USB. It is not the Wi-Fi, it is not at least for private schools. It is the habit, it is the procrastination, it is other things. So motivation, again, requires structure. Doable routine for all. And I talked about earphones. I will tell you about the for all. Again, this is from my public school students. So one of them, this is a male, and last July, he really has a problem with his Wi-Fi. He lives in Mindanao. Ganun na, okay? He lives in Mindanao, and the Wi-Fi is really, really spotty. And I know it's spotty because every time we have live class, in the middle of it, mawawala siya. Pero he would come back in. Yan yung totoong may problema sa Wi-Fi. Hindi yung, while the other students naman naka-on yung Wi-Fi, but hindi sila nakikinig. That's the problem of many of the wealthier students. So this kid lives in Mindanao, is still in Mindanao now, and he told me, natakot siya because he said, Mom, about the exam, what if I don't have Wi-Fi during the exam? What Ateneo does is this. So we do ×4. Suppose I have an exam, and he was in my math class. My math exam would last for 1 hour. So what I do would be, we are required to make the exam available for 4 hours. So even if technically I would like the exam to be from 9 to 10, I make sure that the exam is available for the students anytime from 8 to 12. That's what we do. It's a ×4 strategy. You might want to do that. So anytime from 8 to 12, they can do on their own. Bahala sila. 8 to 12, in the opening exam. They can actually do 1 hour. As long as it's from 8 to 12. So I told the student, you don't have to, kung wala kang kung may problema ka ng 9 to 10, baka makaka-log on ko ng 11 to 12. Ganyan. I told him, look, if you really don't have Wi-Fi, I can understand it. Just send me evidence that you really don't have Wi-Fi at the time, and we will reschedule your exam. But I also told him this. I said, maybe one reason. And he told me, ma'am, minsan nawawala ako ng Wi-Fi kasi nga yung tatay nanay ko nag-zoom. Okay, so now I see the problem. So yes, for many of those in the areas that don't have too much Wi-Fi, if you overload the Wi-Fi, and he doesn't have Wi-Fi, actually, he does the load. So hindi siya Wi-Fi, wala silang Wi-Fi. So they do load, lalo na yung load. Kung marami kang nagmagamit ng, yung Wi-Fi mo dun sa load, then definitely you would have a problem. So I told him this. I said, look, I already gave you the schedule of the test on the first day. So on the first day, I've given the schedule for the entire semester. I said, we only have 2 exams. And I'm telling you way in advance. So please tell your parents this. Tell them, I have a very important math exam coming up on this day and on this time. So please tell them, do not schedule any meeting, any Zoom, Skype, whatever meeting on that time, because that is the time you're going to take the exam. I said, nauna na ako. If I did not give the exam schedule earlier, then I cannot ask this. But I am very OC, and I give it on the first day, also precisely because of things like this. And I'm so happy to tell you, it worked like a charm. This kid took the exams with no problem, and I do that with all of my classes, and there's no problem with that. So that's probably part of the things I'm going to tell the teachers, and I talk to them in deep. You have to reschedule every single live moment counts, because it's so little compared to what we have. Before, I have 18 weeks of classes. Now with 1 quarter, I barely have 6 weeks. So I really have to ensure that every single time is important. Nagsasalita ako, wala na yung mga joking unless the joke is important. Okay? So I don't want to waste anyone's time. And the rules are set and the structures are set. Again, it is a matter of structure. So nang ginawa ko doon, as of now, knock on wood, 100% compliance yung estudyante ko. Lahat across the board. It's more than 500 students, and they're able to do it. And time for, so it's for all. You have to negotiate, parents and students negotiate. They negotiate the time, negotiate usage of Wi-Fi, etc. Again, exercise. And parents, if your kids don't exercise, what's a good thing would be you should join them. Okay, because many parents also don't exercise. Schedule it in, 4 to 5 p.m., the entire family dances Zumba. That's a good way to exercise. Okay? And whether they like it or not, get them away from the screen. Physically, their eyes are hurting, their headaches are, coming up, and then ang daming problema kasi kung laging nakababad sa screen. And it's not ideal, but should be workable for all. I have so many other practical ways, no time, so chapter 2 of one of my books. Manage distractions. Again, headphones. Some of my students say that distractions are because maingay daw yung tatay, nanay nila. Ma'am, di ako nakaka-concentrate kasi yung tatay, nanay ko, ang ingay-ingay, nagagalit sa Zoom. Sabi ko, don't blame your father and mother. I said, most of the distractions are not because maingay yung surroundings. Most of the distractions are not because kanila are self-inflicted. I said, you guys are doing Netflix even if you shouldn't be doing it on a Monday. I said, do Netflix on weekends. You guys are surfing during live class. You guys are gaming, right after yung ganon. So, and limit the number of windows on screen. In the study we did before, we were shocked to find out that the average number of windows high school students have would be 7 to 8. How the heck can you even focus if you have 7 to 8 windows open? And this goes even for live class. I've seen it. So one window is tuned to me. Another window is nandiyan yung YouTube. Another window may isa pa. Another window yung game na. Another window yung chat nila. Sabi ko, no wonder you can't concentrate. No wonder you guys can't learn much. So limit the number of windows to possibly, kung live class, sana 1, isa lang, or 1 to 2. Okay. External reminders. This is a funny one, and this came from an Ateneo boy. I don't know if it will work for you. This Ateneo boy, pre-pandemic, was already having problems because he was put on probation. His grades, his average was not very high. And he came to me, and he said, Mom, nako, I locked myself out of my iPhone. I said, how do you do that? He told me about screen time. So those of you with Apple gadgets, there is something called screen time, which you can, so this student was so desperate. And he said, Mom, if I don't lock myself out of it, I cannot stop. Every time it pings, notification, I will have to look at it. Sabi ko, number 1, turn off your notification. That's the first thing. Why do you have to turn it on? Diba? So he said that's not enough. So he locked himself out of it. I saw how it went. He would consult me. And parang he would actually automatically get his iPhone and he wants to Google the answer, and I get mad every time he does that. So one time he did it and he couldn't get in, so his iPhone wouldn't work. I saw a look of panic cross his face. I said, okay, mom, I locked myself out. I said, good. He said, mom, what do I do? I said, well, you now have to figure it out on your own. So, he did that. So he had enough courage to actually screen time will limit the amount of time you have on your phone, whether it is, there are other productivity apps, which some of my students are using. They lock themselves out of certain games, Fortnite, for instance. Kasi sabi nila, they cannot help it. Kung they don't lock themselves out, they will do it. Nakakatakot na yan. Most students don't dare do it because they say they need to have the iPhone all the time. But I'll go back to this student. So this student just did that. And let me tell you, in one semester, his QPI is grade point average, went from a C to a B in one semester just by locking himself out of the iPhone. Okay, so he limited his screen time. Before, he told me he would be on screen practically 20 hours a day. Yes, including when he's asleep. So the notification comes, he would wake up and he would kanya. Right now, he limited it to 5 hours a day. Marami pa rin yung 5 hours. Pero sinabi yung 5 hours now, he really is using it for studying, not for doing other things. Of course, his grades went up, not just in math. His grades went up, in all subjects. And I'm happy to tell you, he's no longer on probation. He will graduate next May. And many of my students tell me, parents, they tell me every time I give a parents talk, I have to tell you this. They say that many of the mothers, and mothers continue this, are very strict about their gadget use, but the parents themselves do not use gadgets well. So parents, please, also don't be on screen the whole time. Okay? Try to read printed books rather than ebooks. Do other things. Go and do cooking, do exercising. So model gadget use, please. This is from the Philippine Society of Pediatric Ophthalmology and Strabismus. 1-year-old, no screen time. 2 to 5-year-old, less than 1 hour a day. Practically no one I know follows this. 2 to 5 years old, naku, ang dami ng screen time. But this is the recommended screen time for kids. You can actually see this in Facebook. You can see this on their web page. So 2 to 5-year-old is less than 1 hour a day and 10 to 13 hours of good quality sleep. How about above 5-year-old? Above 5-year-old would be supposedly guided screen time. And this one didn't say it, baka natanggal ko, but the real one here is above 5-year-old would be possibly for elementary school, 2 hours a day. And let me show you, and keep the screens like this, avoid the screen, avoid direct wind from fans because this is contributing to dry eyes. Good posture, physical activity. The 2020 rule, the doctors tell me I should say this. Tell your children, they need to have a 20-second break every 20 minutes by looking 20 feet away. Okay? You need them to look at far objects rather than just nearsighted on the screen. Okay, so yan yung medical rule. I confess I sometimes don't do it, but I put it up on the wall. I want to remind myself also, my eyesight is also going haywire because of the online screen time. And I'm not even online all the time. DepEd guidelines would be this. Okay, let me tell you now, this is what DepEd wants schools to do. Grades 1 to 5, maximum of 1.5 hours a day. Imagine that. 1.5 hours per day lang of screen time. Gusto ng DepEd. DepEd tells me they're doing this based on the recommendations by the American Academy of Pediatrics and the World Health Organization. Grades 6 to 8, maximum of 2 hours. Grades 9 to 12, maximum of 4 hours, 2 hours in AM, 2 hours in PM. So, again, children should not say that they are on screen the whole day. Do schools follow this? Some schools do, some schools don't. I'm more worried about the younger ones. The older ones, grade 9 to 12, natatakot ako yung maximum of 4 hours. Schools may do it, but we know, those of you with grades 9 to 12, that your kids are practically online the whole time and it's not because of school. They're doing other things. They say it's homework, etc. I will now tackle it. Should they really be online the whole time? I don't have time to do this. Let's hear from young people, but these are real people. Dr. Jackie Navarro is a pedia in Med City, and I would quote their stories and their strategies. I don't have time to do this, but if you're interested, this one is a book we did. It's a thick book because a lot of it is interviews from people with their names on it. Okay, so they talk about using social media, gaming addiction, etc. This one is highly, highly disturbing. If you have Netflix, watch it. I discussed this with my college students. What is scary now about social media is that our data, I don't do social media, but our data in social media is being mined by Facebook, etc., and being used without our knowing it. So it is not just a conspiracy theory, it's actually true. The good thing about social media is they interview people who are from Silicon Valley who now are remorseful over the monster that they created. So these are insider stories and their names and their faces are on screen. One of the people who was interviewed is Sean Parker. Sean Parker was the co-creator with Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook. So now Sean Parker doesn't really like what's happening to Facebook. So I know we cannot stop it and we don't want to stop it, but we have to use social media for good. This is quite scary. Please, if you're in high school, take it up, maybe make it required. I don't know, not required, don't require it naman, but parents watch it together with the students. This is happening right now. This one is a bit, for some of my students, this is even more scary. Para sa akin, mas ano ako dito sa social. If you're going to choose between one, watch the Social Dilemma. But this one talks about how Cambridge Analytica and Russia hacked the 2016 US presidential elections, how they divided America. So it's really happening and how what they're doing, what tools they're using. I want you to watch this because the first step to regulating is awareness. We have to know what is happening. And these ones are, they're shocking, but they're true. So, kung kaya ninyo, watch this first, and if you still have time, the second one. I tell students, take responsibility for your own learning. Again, people think that online learning means you have to be online all the time, and the answer is wrong. Most learning is still done offline. Majority of learning. Look at the DepEd, 1.5 hours lang. Don't tell me wala silang gagawin pagkatapos. Diba? So most of the learning is done by assignments, done offline. How do we do this? Complex material. Print is better than online. Go to Scientific American. This is the cover story, the reading brain. They did several experiments. They find out that if you read online, we will have problems with mental resources. We have problems with navigating the text. We have problems with focus. We have problems with retention. Many teachers are very unhappy with the fact that students don't seem to recall anything of what they have learned. I'm teaching college and I will tell them, guys, this is algebra. My God, you forgot how to do factoring. And they will look very sheepish and they say, we vaguely remember our teachers teaching it, but we forgot. My gosh, so, talagang ibang klase na ngayon. So their memory is practically shot because they're always online, diba? And many experts work hard to make reading on tablet, Kindle, or they do even iPad. They want to make reading as close to reading on paper. So I told them, well, why don't we just do reading on paper, diba? Rather than reading a tablet and making it like paper, let's just do reading on paper. How do we do reading on paper? We do print screen. Okay? Isa pa, we tend to scan, not read online. So this is a very famous study. This is called eye tracking study, mata, eye tracking. So this is a page of text, and they try to see where our eyes focus on. So at first, we try our best. This is us and our students. We try our best to read from left to right. This is English, so it's in left to right. Left to right, left to right, left to right. But without our knowing it, especially if we don't do the 20-20-20 rule, without our knowing it, even if we don't want to do it, our eyes get tired, even if we're trying our best to read on screen. So this is what happens. We try our best. So we try. Every time we start a new sentence, we try. So, we focus again. Pero hindi natin kaya. The blue spots are the spots our eyes do not focus on. Look at how little the students get. So if this is their text, this is the only thing they read. They call it the F-shaped pattern. Minsan ganito, yung mga estudyante na talagang ganyan lang. They read the top, they read the bottom, wala na. They read ganito. Talagang study after study after study shows we cannot focus so much if we read online, even if we think we can. Can you imagine your child trying to do a math problem and the problem is put online and she's trying to type in the equations? For God's sake, that one can never happen. Typing the equations took so many resources. So in my math classes, I always tell them, ito ang PDF. Print screen, print it out, turn off the computer, and spend the next 4 to 5 hours doing your math problems. Ang minsan naiinisin ako kasi they want the computer on because if after 2 or 3 seconds they think they cannot get the answer, they will Google. That is the problem that nobody talks about. So I tell them you have to read. If you guys keep on Googling, it's also not learning. Mamaya na ako dun sa Google. So what do we do? Balance between online and offline. Okay, what do we use screen time for? DepEd, the pediatricians, the teachers, everybody wants to limit online time, even now, even during online learning, especially now. So what do? There are certain things we have to do online. We cannot not do them online. I tell my students, if it's brief content, a paragraph, fine, you can do it online. Formative exercises, 2 or 3 exercises, madali lang, do it online. Okay? And I said online time, live classes. You have no choice. You're looking at the teacher. Sabi ko, live classes, online. That's why DepEd has those recommendations for live classes. So yung live classes, kailangan online. Sometimes teachers give videos. I give videos, no choice. So if give videos, they have to watch it online. So live classes online, videos online. I give online tests. If it's oral exam, I do it by Zoom. I do a lot of oral exams because that's one way to ensure they don't cheat. So I do Zoom a lot of oral exams, even if it makes me tired out. Because the oral exams, isa-isa sila or by group. So oral exams, no choice. Zoom kami, so online then. Sometimes the exams are Canvas. They're also online. So those are the stuff I told them, you have no choice. You have to do online for those. And I say, as I told you last time, video chats with the lolo, the lola, the barkada is very important. Zoom parties are important. So yan din, di ba? Video chat, importante. So you have to online. So kung ganyan, ang dami na kailangan mag-online, okay? I said the other stuff, you should not do online. So suppose there's a book chapter. I've seen many teachers do the wrong thing. So some teachers just put like a 50-page chapter there, and the students have to be online to read 50 pages. Do you really seriously think any child will really focus for 50 pages? That's impossible. So I tell the kids, I don't do that, but other teachers do. I think right now they're being told not to do it. But pre-pandemic, that's what students have to do. They have to do a chapter which is 50 pages. So I tell the students, if ever you have a chapter that's 50 pages, do not read it online. Just download it and print it out and turn off the computer and do it offline. That is where real learning starts. That is where real learning happens. It has to be offline. Lalo na yung math, yung science, I said, print out the questions. That's it. Printing is less than 1 minute. Then you go and for the next few hours, go there and just do it the old-fashioned way. Do it with the hand, pen, and paper. Father Nebres keeps on telling this, and he's a mathematician who's a national scientist. When he gives talks to my classes, he will say, nothing for mathematics, all you need is pen and paper. You actually don't even need the calculator. Pen and paper and your brain. That's it. That's all you need. You don't need any gadgets. In fact, gadgets make it worse. So sabi ko sa estudyante ko, yan yung kailangan niyo, gawin lang. That's it. Print it out and do it there. So if the kids tell you that they have to do assignments and they have to be online the whole day, that is not true. Okay, so some of the parents, there's this parent that was Ateneo parent, I could say. So this is an Ateneo parent with a child in grade 5. Natatakot na siya because, sabi niya yung anak ko parang lying na, telling is grade 5 and he's sleeping at 11, used to sleep at 9, so ang daming ano. So sinabi ko sa parent, I said, yung grade 5. So I talked to the grade 5 teachers and I found out, no, they really are online very little of the time and most of the assignments really should be able to be done offline. So I told the parent that, sabi ko sa parent, kaya mo ba to shut off the Wi-Fi? Sabi niya, ha? Sabi ko, you have to shut off the router. Shut off the router. Tell your child he has no choice. Takot na takot siya, baka magagalit yung anak ko. Sabi ko, well, kung ganyan, then I can't really help you. She did shut off the Wi-Fi. Of course, it meant the parents had to suffer. Okay, so this is what we did. But the son is online for the live classes. So tapos na sila by mga 1 to 2 p.m. Pagkatapos niyan, sinabi ko sa parent, tell the son, I'm going to give you 2 hours extra for you to do whatever you can, whatever research, whatever. Okay? Even Netflix, even gaming, I'll give you 2 hours. After that, I will shut off the Wi-Fi, and whether or not you're finished with class, that's it. And she did that. Of course, you know what happened. The kid didn't think she would do that. Yelled and told the mother, you're the worst parent on earth. I hate you. Everybody has Wi-Fi. Umiyak yung nanay. But in the end, the child was able to do it. The mother cared for her kahit iyak siya ng iyak. And after, it only took 2 weeks. After 2 weeks, she said, the child knew he only had 2 hours. So for the 2 hours, he just studied. He quickly downloaded ganito, marami siyang ginagawa. And that's it. The child, their communication could be better. This is not a miracle thing. The child, and there's a sound problem also, but she said at least the habits are better. But she had to have the courage to shut off the Wi-Fi in the first place. By the way, this is grade 5. It will not work if your kid is in high school. Magagalit talaga sila, so there has to be other things. Why Googling is not learning? This is from Barbara Oakley, Learning to Learn. So what I also do sometimes is I tell my students, I expect you to learn, so I myself have to learn. So I attend classes on Coursera also. So this is one of the classes I feel is very good. I think you can do it for free. So you can go to Barbara Oakley. They'll give you tips on how to learn. And she tells her students that why Googling is not learning is because you have done almost nothing. If you just Google and you copy and paste, you have done nothing to knit the concepts into your own underlying brain. You must have information persisting in your memory. Ito ngayon nakakatakot eh. If your memory is already shot, how can it persist? So all of these are interrelated. So Googling, I would tell my students, I cannot stop you from doing Google, but I also Google. And if I see that your answer is straight from the Google site, you get a 0. So ngayon, I train my students. If you're going to do problem solving, you first try to do it on your own, and you have to show me your trial and error attempts. So what I do now is they have to show me all the wrong paths that they did, and I actually give grades for that. And in the end, if I tell them, fine, suppose you are stuck in this assignment for 3 to 4 days, I give them 2 weeks to do a problem set. So 3 to 4 days, kung di nyo kaya, you can ask your friend, but you better tell me who your friend's name is, write it down. If you Google the site, you better write it down also, or else I will think it's plagiarism and I will elevate it to the disciplinary committee. So I do that, and wow, you can just see nga. Nandun, ma'am, this is my wrong move. Natutuwa ako sa wrong move because failure is a good teacher. I said, don't think of it as a wrong move. Think of it as this one may not work, but at least now you know it doesn't work. And I give grades for that. I actually like it. I give higher grades for students who attempt in my class and give the not correct solution, rather than students who are so scared to recite because they're scared to make a mistake in front of everyone. So yung klase ko lahat is pataasan talaga sila sa making mistakes, minsan. And I like that because the scary thing with today's generation, the anxiety is they have to be perfect. The anxiety is people will laugh at them if they make a mistake. I said, of course you're going to make a mistake. If you don't make a mistake, if you know the entire topic, you don't need to be in Ateneo. I told them, why do you even have to study? But if you know everything, just stay home. Start up your own company. Like Bill Gates said. Bill Gates probably knows many things. I said, but you're not Bill Gates. So, yan yung, those. So I'll go back to the anxiety thing in a bit. Underlying issues even before the pandemic. I've talked about distractions, but these are the others: discipline, communication, learning, and then this one I have to talk about it in a Chinese school because the Chinese schools are the ones that are the most. They're very worried about cheating in exams. In the other schools, not so much. So discipline, these are the real ones. How do we teach about fighting? How do I instill discipline in my 11-year-olds? College ko hindi pa rin. Self-sufficient without going back. So in short, lahat disiplina, self-learning, tutor pa ba? Or ensure ako na lang. Yun. Discipline. 1 to 7 years old, according to most psychologists, is called the age of regulation. We make very clear to the child what to do. Anak, spending so much time on screen is not good. So I'm going to limit your screen time to 1 hour. That's it, no ifs or buts. Say it in a very nice way, don't, ganon. You're going to say, what if your kid is already used to 5 to 6 hours a day? Then that is a problem. This is easier for those who already start it right early on. Those of you whose children are already maybe addicted to screen, I would suggest try to dial it down. If your child who is 6-year-old is on screen for 6 hours a day, gawin ninyong 4 hours a day. Pagkatapos ng 4 hours a day, gawin ninyong 2 hours a day. And then stay there na. Do it gradually. But again, you are the parent, okay? And you can tell your child this: I love you. I love you, so I want what is best for you. And what is best for you because you're 6-year-old is not 6 hours on screen. You can just say that. Okay? And just very calmly, and isa pa rin, they will say, anong gagawin ko? They will say, hala, patay, I'm 6 hours on screen, anong gagawin? Even parents don't know what to do. There are many other things to do. Play with them, physical play. Exercise with them. Make them read books, printed books. There's so many other things to do that are not screen time. So parents will have to be creative in doing that. So if you tell them not to go and do on screen, you also have to give them alternatives for what to do once their time is suddenly freed up. See, Father Ricky was talking about time. So a lot of time is wasted on screen. Free up the time for them to do other things. Make them volunteer. Make them do singing. Say, Jude, you're good at singing. Sing, dance, lahat. Other things basta hindi screen time. 8 to 12 years is not as easy. It's age of imitation. So aside from making very clear to the child, you also have to be a role model. So your 10-year-old will say, Daddy, you told me not to be on screen, but you're on screen all the time. Yan na, nabubuking na tayo. So this one is they have to imitate. They have to see that we're good role models. Right? 13 years up, role models are not enough. You have to inspire them already, or else they will not listen to you. They will tune you out. What I do a lot in my college talks is I give names of inspiring students. I talk a lot about Rosel Ambubuyo, the blind college student who's the best student I've ever taught, who graduated summa, valedictorian. But okay, I'll tell you about Rosel. It's not because she's summa or valedictorian. Let me tell you about the thing that really endeared us to the math department. She was a math major. So Rosel came in at 1997. I was not her teacher in her first math. So in her first math, she was taking algebra. And before, grades were not inflated. Right now, grades are inflated. It's very easy to get an A. Before, it's not. So before, in math classes, the average grade is a C, and students are very happy to get a C. In my time, a C is something to be rejoiced about. Ngayon, natatakot sila. So Rosel was very good. And Rosel got a B. And the B was the highest grade given to that entire batch in algebra. Okay? Ngayon, kung may B, nagagalit yung mga bata, oh, I need an A, ganyan, and they're not even half as good as Rosel. So Rosel got a B, fine. We didn't even know, so she got a B. And she did not complain. And she got the same teacher, again, not me, in the next class, which is calculus. Most students now, if they get a B, they will hate the teacher because they want an A. Ganyan. Si Rosel, no. She was the highest. She didn't know she was the highest. She didn't really care about the grades, but she was the highest, according to these teachers. And the next class in calculus, she was very happy because she studied even harder. And she was already a B+. So she was very, very happy. So B to B+, tuwan-tuwa na siya. But this is what her teacher said. The teacher told her, Rosel, you are 91, B+. And I know you don't care about the grade, but an A is 92. Rosel, if you do very well on the final exam, you can get an A. And Rosel, of course, asked the teacher, but what if I do badly? If I do badly, baka there's a risk that my grade will go lower. The teacher said, yes, there is a risk, but it is up to you. And I believe in you, and I know that you know the topic. So if I were you, I'm challenging you to go beyond your comfort zone. And this is not for the grade, because you're already superb and you're already doing so well. But this is for your own self-confidence. Rosel took the challenge. She practically got perfect in the exam, and she got an A. And years after that, yung mga summa, yung mga valedictorian, those are not even that important. She remembered that. So she graduated in 2001, summa and vale, BS Math. I'm so happy to tell you she was my successor as summa. From me, 1981 to 2001, there was no other math major who was summa except Rosel. I'm so, so proud that she was my successor. So, going back, 2018, the school decided that Rosel will be the commencement speaker for the science people and for the management people. So the MEs, the NHG, so science and management. So Rosel gave her speech, and we were stunned to remember that she remembered exactly what happened. So in 2018, she told the entire graduating class that the best moment of her life was not even getting the awards. The best moment of her life was when her teacher encouraged her to do what she felt was not possible. And after that, she said, after Rosel got that A, all her math courses were A. So she got the confidence, alam na niya, she got the grit, the resilience, ganon. It's not even the grade, but it's the mentality. So she told the students that. So that's one way of inspiring. So I always try to talk about my best students. It's the way to inspire college students. So the college students will know that there were once kids in their place who actually did very well. There are other practical stories. If you're interested, you can see this book. Learning is a habit. Parents are the best tutors. But if you must, especially for Chinese schools, parents look at it this way. When you and I were studying, we didn't have tutors. Why is it now we feel our students have tutors? One Savior boy told me this, and he was correct. He said, Mom, I never really wanted to have a tutor, but my parents insisted I should have a tutor because everybody was having a tutor. And I said, how did you feel about that? When I was in grade 1 and grade 2, I really did not want to have a tutor. I even told my mother, don't you trust me? I can actually do it on my own. But she insisted I should have a tutor. Sabi ko, and he said, Mom, I'm sorry to tell you, by grade 5 and 6, I was already dependent on the tutor. That came from a good student. So hindi niya kailangan ng tutor, binigyan siya ng tutor kasi natatakot yung nanay, nahatol ng tutor. And then the kid started to just rely on the tutor. That is so sad. So still, if you still want the tutor despite what I said, there are tips on how to make tutoring work for you. The best tutors are the ones who make the students independent. They do not want to make the kids rely on them. Empower the kids to study independently. This is the thing, ito na. All from the Chinese schools. A few from Ateneo, but many Chinese schools. How can we assist without helping too much? I'm a working mom. It's unfair if there are parents at home coaching children. How do we address? What steps can the school take? Ito na. The school cannot do anything. If the parents are going to sit beside their children online and do the work for them, the school cannot do much. Okay? Even in college, I don't even know, I'm hoping there's none. I tell my students they don't have to do it. Natatawa sila if they think that college na may nanay pa nakatabi, but they never know, there could be some. So the school cannot really do much. Parents, just tell your kids not to cheat. I will do it this way. So I tell my students not to cheat, but if a parent is doing the work for them, I also will not know. I'll tell them I will not know it. I will not know. I said it's between you and God. And parents look at it this way, especially Chinese parents, because we're the ones who are always worried about grades. You might think that kawawa yung anak ko because yung isa, running for honors, meron siyang nanay na nagtuturo na gumagawa pa ng test sa kanya. Hindi eh. Ang kawawa yung nanay na yan. Ang kawawa yung anak na yan. Because that child, even if that child may get temporarily higher grades than your child, because your child is doing it on her own and that child is doing it with the help of an adult. Yes, right now your child might get 80 and that child might get 96. But you know that that child is not learning anything. So yung kawawa, hindi anak mo. Yung anak mo, okay. Because your child is the one who can independently learn. Think about it that way, please, Filipino parents. Do not compare it. And kung pwede, I'll tell you what Ika is doing now. Ika, I consult for Ika, so I told Ika, let's just stop this obsession with grades. And because this obsession with grades is also leading to mental health issues. So what Ika did now, except for the graduating class, there's not going to be any merit, no honors, no ganyan. And the grades, they won't even give awards. So good, thank God. Thank God. So right now, except for the graduating class, they will not be ranked. I'm so happy with it. And I talked to some students. The students are happy with it. The ones not very happy with it are some parents who still want the awards. The kids are happy. It's a big thing off their back. So in the pandemic, grades are so non-important. It is learning that is important. I keep on telling the Chinese schools, stop the obsession with grades. The Chinese Surname Association, stop giving ang pao to those with grades. That's not it. That's driving our entire society crazy. That's driving our kids to commit suicide. Ganun na, diretso na. So let's just make them learn in the way that they can. And cheating, etc. If students tell me, Mom, if I really want to cheat, I can do it. And I believe them. I'm so sad to tell you, but that's really what they say. They have so many tricks up their sleeve. I just tell them, I wish you spend more time studying than thinking of ways to cheat. Minsan natatawa sila. But that's what they do. Magaling sila mag-cheating, lalo na may gadgets ngayon. There's nothing much we can do. But again, parents, model the right thing. Just because other people are cheating does not mean that we will cheat. That's it. That is it. Let us just stop saying what other people are doing. And again, if your child is studying independently, your child will be the one reaping the benefits. In college, your child will be the good one, not the other one whose mother is doing the whole work for her. This is an Ika question. How do we bring up children to thrive in adversity? Ika wanted me to answer this a little bit on this one. Carol Dweck, you can Google her, talks about the growth mindset. We emphasize effort, not ability. So if your child did something well, say that, wow, you worked really hard on that one. Don't say, wow, you're number one, you're the best in class. Nope, nope, nope. Always on the effort. Because if you emphasize the effort, the child will put in more effort. Try not to say anything about the grade. Okay? So I never ever say, si ganito got an A in my class. I don't. I don't do that. I don't say somebody got an A again. What I do is, especially in this pandemic, I give private messages to students. So I will say this. I'm in my second exam right now. I will tell one student, this is good effort. You got a 70 now, and the first one was 62. I know that you studied this more thoroughly than before, so keep it up. So ganito. So kahit a 70 is still bad, it's better than 62. And I knew why he got 70, because he was more careful, he studied more. So you always praise based on the effort what they can change. Okay, so you don't ever, and then yung mga matataas, okay, I actually normally don't even do any praising at all because they're already quite grade conscious. So I don't say anything to those who get high. Okay? Sometimes I'll just say, keep up the effort for those of you who are happy with your grades. Ganun na. Okay? Or just continue the performance. Parents, so important. Let children experience disappointment. My cuento that I actually give higher marks to those who recite in class and do the wrong recitation rather than those who don't even try. They have to experience disappointment, even failure in small doses. Small doses, I don't want you to let them fail, of course. Small doses, a quiz or two, failure. Ensure that they learn from these mistakes. I will tell you something about, I have my son's permission to tell you this. So I've always been usually hands-off with my son. So I have to practice what I preach. Prep to grade 1, grade 2, he would come home from school and he would tell me, Mom, I finished all the assignment. I quickly did it in class because when he comes home, he wants to play. I will tell him, okay, I won't even look at your assignment. I know madali naman yung assignment in nursery and prep. I said, but you have to do my worksheets. And my worksheets usually have nothing to do with the assignment. I just want him to have the habit that when he comes home from school, it is not play kaagad. And it has to be done early. So kahit natapusan niya yung assignment niya, bibigyan ko siya ng ibang assignment. Usually my assignments are harder pa nga than the assignments he has. And he just has to stay for 1 hour lang. So after 1 hour, he's free to play, and he can do, basketball, whatever. So I've done that. And I'm happy to say, by the grade 2, I actually don't have to do it. Grade 2, because I also am busy in Ateneo, he comes home and the yaya reports to me. The moment he comes home, he starts working on his homework. Ganun na. And when I come back, tapos I don't even look at his homework. Tapos na, because the structure was already there. So this is what happened once in grade 3. I remember it so well. It was exam week, and as usual, I did not look at his schedule of exam because I trusted him. Tama yung exam niya, diba? And he was just telling me, oh, Mom, tomorrow we're going to have an exam in Filipino. I said, fine. And he likes Filipino, so it's fine. And he was about to go to sleep. And he was just looking at his paper. He was putting his assignment notebook into the bag. And I saw his face change. He wanted to cry. I said, what is the problem? And he said, Mom, tomorrow is not the Filipino test. Tomorrow is the test in CLE, religion. I said, oh my gosh. And he was about to go to sleep. Did you study CLE? And he hesitated. Okay, he said, no, I was reviewing for Filipino. Okay. I could have blamed myself. I could have said, ano ka ba? Kung ibang nanay yan, alam nila kasi ang dami-dami pang exam sheet. Ako, wala akong pakialam. Ganito na. Nako, paano kung bumagsak siya ng CLE? Kaya, so that was going through my mind. And I saw my son's face. He was so scared. He normally is never scared. He was so scared. So I took a deep breath and I told him, that is such an idiot. Actually, I had to tell him. I said that was an idiotic thing to do. Okay, but it was done now. So are you comfortable with CLE? He said, Mom, I have to review. I said, go, review now. So he took out the CLE and he started, I saw him, takot na takot siya. Grade 3, the first time in his life, I've never seen him that worried. So he reviewed, an hour, ganito.
And then I think at 10:30, he never slept that late. At 10:30, he just closed his notebook. I did not have to say anything. I did not say anything because he was already so scared by the whole thing. So 10:30, he closed the notebook. He just did 1.5 hours. The only good thing was he never crams. So he knows that he shouldn't cram. So kahit 1.5 hours is technically not enough to review the entire quarter. But because he doesn't cram, he already still has it in his memory. So the next day, he went to school. And afterwards, I was of course worried about it because he only studied last minute. Pero pagdating ko, sabi ko, kumusta? CLE, how was the exam? I never asked exams, at this time I had to ask because this was a different case. He just told me, Mom, it was totally fine. But this is the thing. I let him make that mistake. I let him make that horrendous mistake. After that, ang galing niya, grabe. He double checks, triple checks every single quiz, every single deadline up to today because he learned the lesson. So I let him make that almost scaly mistake. If I didn't make that mistake, kung ako ang nagsischedule sa kanya, he will never learn to do it. So ngayon, wala. He knows it. He tells me he knows what he has to do January and February. Ang dami ng planner, meron siyang digital planner, meron siyang planner na print because alam niya, nangyari sa kanya noon when he took schedules for granted. So that is one example of even failure in that small. And ensure that they learn. You don't want kids just to fail because if you just want them to fail, that is cruel. That's terror teachers. Yay, so many people are failing. Ang sarap, ang galing ko. That's stupid. So I tell teachers they shouldn't do that. You want them to fail because you want them to learn from their mistakes. If they fail and they do not learn, they should not fail in the first place. Okay, so failure should be a teacher. Failure is not a punishment. So parents, that is the difference. So fail and let them learn from it. Every time your children fail in something, you will comfort them. But after comforting, you have to ask, this is what we don't ask. What should we do so that you don't fail again? They have to learn from their mistakes. If my students and my son fail the first time, I'm totally okay with it. What I don't like, if they keep on making the same mistake afterwards, yan yung nakakainis. Okay, so kung nag-failing ka, sinabi ko na nga, or you're supposed to have learned it, hindi pa rin, yan pa rin yung ginagawa mo, that is the problem for me, even with my class. So the first failure, okay, but then we have to address it. Okay, and if you address it and then you know what to do, you still don't do it, that is the problem now. So that is the way we should do it. And also, in life, I think, and practice gratitude. Yeah. So adversity, the only way they can thrive is for them to experience a little bit of adversity so that when the big adversity comes, kaya nila. One reason also for mental health issues is, and why do you think mental health is so prevalent among especially the wealthy rather than the poor? Father Nebres has this theory that the wealthy people, lagi nating sinasalo, hindi mo kaya tutor, hindi mo ito ganito. Kung mahirap yung test, kami yung pupunta sa eskwela, we make sure, some teachers even tell me, parents even complain, to make sure everybody flunks the test, or we should not even count the test. That is not making your children thrive. That is you, controlling the environment for your kids. But there will come a time, and usually it happens in high school and college, especially college. There will come a time you cannot game the system. So what will happen to the child? The child has a parent who does everything for him. They go to say Ateneo or UP, or lalo na UP, o ganito. Then, whatever the parent does, hindi na kaya ng tutor, hindi na kaya, wala. So the kid for the first time has uncomfortable feelings. The kid has never failed. They're always the top one. Because ang daming salo. And now the child goes to college, and then bigla na lang patay. I cannot be top one because ang lahat ng top one nandito, ang gagaling nila. What do? Then they get into depression. A lot of it is that hindi kasi nila kaya ng pressure maliit pa. So they get bigger pressures early on. They don't have the muscle. Father Ben says it's a muscle. Resilience is a muscle. They don't have the muscle to face higher adversity because they have never been exposed to lower. It's like a vaccine. But vaccine is supposed to give you a small part of the disease, supposedly, something that will not kill you, but it's supposed to make you stronger. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. So we have to expose them to a little bit, just a little bit of discomfort. So that when the big discomfort comes, kaya nila. That is the whole key. And that is exactly the growth mindset. Growth is the Father Nebres na to. This is exactly what he said. Focusing on A for its own sake paralyzes you. If you just go for the grades, not for the learning, you give up at the first hint of discomfort. You avoid ordinary challenges. You never develop the mindset, attitudes, and skills that our society desperately needs. Let's ensure, let's focus on grades now. I don't have time to do communication. I have to stop. So my son was telling about communication a little bit here. Often young people listen more to peers. So it's good for you to also know your children's friends. Um, this is a book from my son. Many Ateneo people, Xavier, have this because they launch it in Xavier. And sometimes the parents tell me, because this is my son writes he wrote it when he was in high school. So the kids can relate more to a high school rather than maybe to a parent who tells them what to do. So he talks about competition, he talks about bullying, he talks about many things. I told you about this one. The rational part of the brain matures only at 25 to 30 years. In the teen years, the primitive parts like the amygdala are very, very active. So for teenagers and for children, parents, please let us be more patient. There's so many times when I teach in class that I literally have to bite my tongue. But I cannot say what I want to say because they are not adults. Even if they look like adults, they are still impulsive. Their decision making is not the same as ours. So in yelling at them, is not going to do any good. What we do is we talk with them strategies on what will work. For instance, procrastination is a huge thing with my students. So I tell them, alam ko, whatever you say, majority of you procrastinate. And I tell them about this part of the brain. I told them, because I'm telling you that your amygdala is the one that's ruling, it is not an excuse for you to procrastinate more. Because you know that that is what is happening, you have to have extra strategies to ensure to fight against it. You have to fight your amygdala. I said, wala, you're in Ateneo. We expect certain standards. You have to fight it. So I actually spent hours talking to them about how to overcome procrastination. And if you want to know what I tell them, Ateneo tells me I can show this to you. These are on the Ateneo websites. These are long talks. This is Rosel Ambubuyog, by the way, when I talked about her. These are long talks on learning strategies. So I talked directly to college students. I talked about procrastination. I talked about structure. I talked about grit and growth. So in for students, so you can access this if you want. And these are other schools say they want this one. So I'm including the transcript of the talks here in my new book that's coming up, the book that's being launched next week. I tell students, study hard, study smart, begin with subjects you're difficulty with, focus on what you don't know. Most students want to just study the things that they know. Nope, they have to go with the things that are most difficult for them while they still have the energy to do it. So if math is the worst subject, you don't leave math until the last. By that time, pagod ka na. That's the first thing you do. And multitasking is not very good. In fact, it doesn't work at all. Okay? We talk about SMART goals. So these are slides I show my students. So instead of my student telling me, Mom, I'm going to graduate summa cum laude, I said, that's a really weird goal. You probably can't get it. I said, specific. What does it mean? First, next week, I have a paper. I make sure that I'm able to do justice to the paper by doing it now. So that's more specific, measurable, attainable. Ito rin. Mom, I want to, I will be summa cum laude. I said, seriously? Right now, you're barely passing. I said, is it attainable? Or if you don't get it, you're going to. Sometimes it might feel cruel, but it's not. Because students actually, they want to know what is realistic. So I said, instead of thinking you're going to be summa to make your parents happy, say ganito, you're about to flunk. Okay? A more realistic goal will be, you will not flunk. So you're now an F. Let us try to get you into a D. And once we get into a D, then we'll go into a C. I said, from an F to an A, unless something drastically happens, it's not very attainable. And you will get depressed if you don't attain it. So let's just do attainable. So your specific, measurable, attainable, relevant. I said, it has to be relevant for you. I said, why do you guys spend so much time doing video gaming if you'll never earn money from video games anyway? I said, is it even relevant to you? I said, a goal has to be something where, Mom, I really want to reach the high score of ganito Fortnite. I said, okay, suppose you reach the high score. How will that impact your life? Can you earn money from doing it? No. Is there somebody who's going to be better than you? Yes. So I said, so why do you need the high score in Fortnite? Mom, wala lang. I said, yan na. What do you mean, wala lang? Okay, so why is it relevant? I said, you don't get anything out of it. So again, the goal has to be something relevant. Okay? And they have to see it, but sometimes we have to challenge them, and timely. It has to be accomplished within an amount of time. These are the tips I do with students. I don't have to do this, but many of them are actually, because they are the ones most often asked by students and parents now. I'm including it in my book, which Anvil will launch next week. And all of you are invited. And this is the Anvil Facebook page. So if you want to know more, next week, it's not just for parents. I will also address a bit students. So that's it. Thank you, stay well, and God bless.
Thank you very much, Dr. Queena Shua, for the very informative and very inspiring talk. So we will now begin with the question and answer portion. You may type in your questions in the comment box. Thank you. Dr. Queena, I have here some questions. So first, how to balance parenting duties when parents are also have to work?
Okay, parents, are you working 24/7? You're not. Okay, so when I say that you're going to monitor your kids, you're not going to sit with them the whole time. So what you do will be, you can be, if your kids are in preschool, so that's grade 1, kinder, and grade 2, if I were you, put your kids in the same room. If your child is a male and easily distracted, put them in a room where you can see what they're doing. So ang kailangan natin is we don't monitor the content of learning. We monitor the habit of learning. So you can still be working, say in room A, and from time to time you glance over, make sure you can see the screen of your child. Okay, you glance over to see if your child is really tuning in to the teacher on that screen. Okay, so yan yun. So kaya mo pa rin, you can actually do ganito, and then you can do this. What I did before, I never stopped working, even when my child was going to school. So I told the yaya to do it. I don't have the time to even fetch my child. I'm in school. So what the yaya did was, when they fetched the child, when they fetched my son, they would come back home and the yaya would tell him, Scott, sabi ng mami mo, you have to do this particular worksheet. Done. I don't even check the worksheet. I don't care what his answers are. I just want him to have the structure in place. So for the parents, if you're working, you might be thinking, oh no, I would have to tutor them. No, the content, the children have to do it on their own. You're not going to study math again. You're not going to study Filipino or social studies again. You want them to be the ones to study. They're not studying it for you. They're studying it for them. So I don't see why you can't really when you work. I know we have work, but even with work, I know that parents don't have Zoom meetings the whole time. So you might have Zoom from 8 to 11. Afterwards, you take a break. You take a break and you talk to your child. Okay, anak, what did you learn in school today? It's one of the best questions. What did you learn today? Kung wala siyang masagot, may problema tayo. Kung nothing, that's a scary one. Kung okay yan, he will say, oh, you know, in ganito, PE, this is what my teacher did, in math, this is what my teacher did. Then you're fine. You don't have to tell them whether it's correct or not. Okay? But you want to see that they're learning. So let's just stop the correcting. We want them to have the habit rather than the content. The content, they have to do it on their own. Next question.
Are these habits or incorrect way of learning caused by the parents or schools? Does the improvement depend solely on the parents?
Most of the time, it's the parent. Most of the time, it's the parent. The schools, not as much. Sige, kwento na lang to. Why it's not the school. And this is a kwento I say to other schools. St. Jude up to now is still one of the best schools in learning. I really, really believe that. Okay, your children in general have better study habits than the children of other schools. And I really think it is a school, and I think it's also the parent. So just one cuento. In the 1990s, how did I first find out that St. Jude was this good? But in the 1990s, when I was teaching calculus class, I decided one day to give eight questions not to be submitted as an assignment. This was a class of 40 students. And we were using Lighthold. There were 50 questions. And all I did was just to choose 8. Okay? When I chose 8, To my disappointment, there were certain students from other schools, including schools that I'm affiliated with, okay, especially the boys, that complain, Mom, 8, that's too much. We have a term paper for English. So complain. This is in the 1990s, okay? I tell them, look, if you don't want to do the 8 questions, don't do it. Do not do it. I'm not going to deduct anything. But know that in the exam, you're going to flunk. That's it. It's up to you if you're going to do it. That's it, okay? So some of the people were complaining, but then I have 2 students who were seated on the front row. They did not complain. They even, when the bell rang, they came to me and they said, Mom, after we do the 8 questions, what other questions do you think we should do? My God, I've never had anything like that. It made me so happy. I said, huh? 8 is not enough? Oh, in our school, we have, sinabi nila to. In our school, we used to have 50 questions. So 50? What school do you come from? St. Jude's. Oh my God. Okay. I said, okay, I'm not going to require you to do 50 questions, but you can do, I said, do the 8 questions, which are the most important, and do the odd numbers. Because the odd numbers, there are answers at the back of the book. But it shocked me so much that there's a school wherein the students want even more questions than I'm giving. Whereas the other schools, naiinis na sila. This one, okay. So ever since then, I always had a great impression of St. Jude because your work ethic is so good. And I think you should actually keep that. So this one was always in my mind until recently. So recently, I still have St. Jude students, okay? And I told them this cuento. I was handling no longer calculus. I was just handling algebra. So I was not too happy when, in my first exam, a couple of people didn't pass. Passing is 50%. And they were Filipino Chinese. And I said, come on, if you're Filipino Chinese, I told them privately, this should be easy for you. This is something you get in high school first year. There were people who got perfect, by the way. The science high schools got 100, 99, 98. So hindi siya mahirap na exam. So normal curve siya. Except I was just not too happy to see that 2 Filipino Chinese, whom I thought would do well, easily well, did not even pass. And I was not even happier when I was even more shocked to find out that one of them was Judenite and the other one was another school. So mali ako in a sense, pero mabait itong bata. Sinabi ko, St. Jude? Pero yung St. Jude noon, perfect na to. Ang dali-dali lang to para St. Jude. Sinabi ko talaga. This is recent. This is in 2017. And she said, Mom, but that was the St. Jude of before. I said, what do you mean that's the St. Jude of before? I said, the St. Jude of before were my top students. I said, I don't expect you to be top because your mental health. Sabi ko, but I don't expect you to flunk. Sabi niya, I know, Mom, pero hindi na kami ganun ngayon. I said, what do you mean, hindi na kami? Mom, I said, but you have this. This is algebra. You have this. I know St. Jude. Your standards in math are very high. She said, yeah, I have it. But, I kind of forgot it. Gumanon na siya. Sabi ko, okay. So now, yes, you're still from St. Jude, but you are the same as the rest of the schools that forget it. You're not worse. She's still better. But the same na rin. So parang, what am I trying to say? It's the same school, but the St. Judes of today also admit that their work ethic and possibly their performance is not as good as the St. Jude of the 1990s. So if it's the same school, what is the only factor that's different? Has to be the parenting. Having said that, St. Jude parents, your parenting is still, as I told you, even this student of mine, so she didn't pass the first exam, but she kept on consulting me. And what I made her do was, the only reason why she didn't do well was her high school algebra was not too good. She also told me in St. Jude she didn't get high marks. In fact, she even told me, Ma'am, nagulat ako, nakapasok ako ng Ateneo. Sabi ko, ano ka ba? Yung ganun na. So she also didn't get high marks in St. Jude. So what I did was I made her review her high school algebra because we were already supposed to do college algebra. So when she reviewed and I gave her the Ateneo high school books, I actually gave her the high school books. So I made her review some stuff. Then in the next exam, she was fine. So we remained close friends and she told me I'm allowed to use her cuento. So, it's not the school, not so much the school. It is the generation. So St. Jude is still better. I'm going to say that St. Jude is better than 99% up to now. Some of the students from other schools, especially with parents who are more scared of their kids. And that is the sad truth. Their parents were scared of their kids, so they indulge them. these kids are faring so much worse right now in the pandemic. So we have an epidemic of incomplete grades. So parang ang dami-dami sa my teachers say parang kalahati ng klase nila incomplete because the kids are given 2 weeks to pass the paper, they can't even pass the paper. Sabi ko, before we would have given that an F. Right now we're supposed to be kind, so we give it incomplete. So many students are having incomplete marks. And it's wreaking havoc. So St. Jude is not that. So you're still better. The Judenites I have would still submit requirements on time. They would still, but it's a generational thing. Parents, I think the real thing, even if I'm very strict to my kids, I am strict to my own child, but my parents were so much stricter to me than I ever was to my child. I cannot talk back. I cannot even argue my case. Anak ko, grade 1, nag-argue na. I let him argue, but I tell him you have to use a certain tone. And afterwards, if you argue and I think you're still not correct, you still have to follow me. So meron kaming ganyan, but I let him argue. So what is happening kasi with our generation now, and I'm not the only one saying it, please look at books by US psychologists and US professors. There's one by Julie Lidcott Haynes. She used to be the former dean of Stanford, and she is aghast at the way Stanford students now have so many helicopter parents and their mental health crisis is sky high. This is a dean from Stanford talking about a Stanford student. So it's an Amazon. Just you can just Google Stanford dean talking about students and it probably will come out because it caused a big stir. Harvard also wrote about it. MIT has a rush of suicide. So ang dami. So it's a generational thing. It is not just St. Jude. It's ano kasi tayo where our parents were distant. Our parents did not interfere in class. There was no such thing as a PTC. My mother never went to school, never met any of my teachers, nothing. She tried, and if I got a bad mark, she would get mad at me. She won't get mad at the teacher. So that's how we were raised. But some weird reason we have gotten the wrong. I think it's kind of wrong. We say okay, we always tell ourselves because we are distant from our parents, we want to be friends with our children. On the surface, there's nothing wrong with that. But we are not the barkada of our kids. We are their parents. There's a difference. A barkada will never tell the kid, or unless, I tell barkadas now they have to do it, but most barkada will just accept the child and not even want to correct the child. We are parents. We accept and we love the child no matter what. We always do that. Whatever they do, even if they commit a crime, we still love them. But we are parents. So our goal is for them to be productive members of society. So we have to gently correct them. Hani Kalandang, my mentor, tells me that, many parents think that discipline is a bad word. It's not. Discipline simply means to instruct. That's it. To instruct. Why do you instruct? Because you want your child to be a productive member of society. You want your child to be able to function well when you're no longer around. One kwento na rin I'll have. I wasn't sure I was going to say this, but I said this in Xavier when I gave the talk in Xavier. My son, because his grades were high, was bullied from grade 1 to grade 4. I will say that, parents. He was bullied. He was not physically bullied. If it's physical bullying, I would have stepped in and, made a big commotion. He was emotionally and verbally bullied every day. He would come in early and then they would call him nerd all the time in a bad way. And the higher his scores are, the worse the bullies get. But this is what I did. I did nothing. Parents, I did nothing. Ang lakas-lakas ko and I did nothing. I did not quarrel with the parents. I did not tell the teacher, nothing. And I love my son. My son is my only child. I would die for him. And yet, bullying is a fact of life. Bullying is something, verbal. Physical bullying is not. Physical bullying, I would have stepped in. But the verbal bullying, sabi ko, well, you're really a nerd anyway. Even if you're a nice nerd. Okay? So I did nothing. So for years, I did nothing and he had to do it on his own. Okay, so in grade 4, how did he do the bullying thing? Xavier decided to do Singapore math. And for the first time, Singapore math, I didn't know Singapore math then. So they were doing Singapore math and most of the tutors did not know Singapore math. So many of my son's classmates began flunking. And the pilot group was my son's group. They were the first one because magaling daw sila. So sila yung inuna. Grade 4 sila. So they were the first ones in Xavier to do Singapore math. My son was doing Singapore math on his own. I did not know what it was, and he was left on his own. The other students were dying because they were relying on tutors, and the tutors didn't know how to do it. So one time, when the varsity teams were the ones who bullied him the most. The basketball and the football varsity were the ones who were the worst bulliers in his time. So they went into class, and then they saw him, oh, nerd, ganyan. Ang ginawa ng anak ko in grade 4 was he saluted, actually grade 3, he saluted, and he said, oh, nerd at your service. That's what he did. And he told me, nagulat sila. In fact, a few of them started laughing. Then they stopped. They didn't call him nerd at that time. And a few weeks passed by, and the captain of the varsity team came to him and said, Scott, please, I'm flunking. And the coach told me, if I don't pass, I will be cut from the team. Yan na yung importante sa mga bata, di ba? He said, Scott, please, my tutor cannot help me and my mom is furious. Can you please teach me? Ang ginawa ng anak ko, he actually got a group of his fellow nerds. So lahat ng mga matataas sa math, kinuha niya. So siya yung leader ng mga nerds. Okay? He got it, and then he actually scheduled tutoring sessions for the varsity. And the one who told me this was the math teacher. She was so amazed at what was happening. So the varsity would come in early because they would start the tutoring session from 6:30 to 7:30. They would do that for 2 weeks. Tumaas daw yung grade. And no one ever bullied my son from then on. In fact, when he ran for student council, a year later as an independent, he didn't want to be in the political party, he won because the bullies now were the ones who were bullying everybody to vote for him. Ganun na. So, I love him. But because I love him, he has to learn how to deal with certain things on his own, including something like bullying. It did not mean I was happy to do it. I was angry. I wanted to get so mad. I wanted to call up the parents of the bullies and tell them, anong klaseng mga magulang kayo, ang mga anak ninyo. I wanted to tell them that, but I could not. I kept quiet for years because I knew somehow, you would say, what happened if my son never did this? I don't know. But I was hoping and hoping he would find a way to befriend them, and he did. Right now, some of the bullies are his closest friends, and when they come to our house, I would tell them, you used to bully him a lot. Tita, I'm so sorry, ganun na. So, things like this, guys. So, this is a very long kwento, but is it mostly the parents? Yes, it is the school. But again, bullying cannot really be totally stopped. A lot of it is the parents. I'm not telling you should sit by when your kids are being bullied. If it's physical bullying, you don't sit by. But there could be other ways to brainstorm ways for kids to deal with challenges. So we are there to give them alternative ways to deal with inevitable problems rather than doing the answers for them. We are guiding. We are not the answer machine. So there is a difference. I know it's very difficult, but the only way I can illustrate this is through examples. Because if you just do the principle is you guide them. How the heck do you guide them? So I have to give you examples. There are other examples again in the book and in the other ones. So that's a very long answer, I'm sorry, to a very good question. It's a very good question. Is it the school? Yes, the school has a responsibility. Ateneo now takes bullying very seriously. Xavier School takes bullying very seriously. But even if schools take it very seriously, nangyayari pa rin. So we have to give our kids ways on how to deal with this, a constructive way on how to deal with it. Maybe one last question, because I have to go. One last question.
Children are afraid of trying and depend on I don't know answers. How do I encourage them? Because I see it causes worry in them and they lack confidence to fail. How do I change that environment?
You allow them to fail. It's a very good question, and you allow them to fail. Okay. When you ask them, what did you learn today? If they say nothing or I don't know, you do not stop there. You don't stop. You will say, okay, don't get mad. Don't say, ano ba yan? Binabayaran ko yung tuition yun. You're saying you're not learning anything. So don't do that. You have to keep calm. You ignore that they say, I don't know. You ignore it. Sometimes you just ignore. You ignore what they say. You don't patol. Kasi kung magpapatol kayo, mag-aaway na kayo eh. You just say, okay, how about science? What did your teacher do in science? Kung nothing, again, continue. Dire-diretso yan. In the end, you will say, I think you really did something. Mom, we did nothing. Okay? Sabihin mo, okay, maybe you did nothing. But what do you think? What is interesting for you in science? In short, continue, continue. Don't, on your end, you should not give up. Okay, going back to the failure. How do you do it in class? This is what I do. I call them. I call the ones who do not raise their hands. I call the ones whose faces I do not see on screen. I do that. And I warn them about it. I say, many of you, and I actually say this, many of you, especially the Filipino Chinese, sinasabi ko yan, alam nila eh, you are doing very well and you're diligent, but you're always in the background and you don't want to recite. And because in Ateneo, you need to grow. So I will show them the screen I showed you kanina. You chose Ateneo because you value excellence. You chose Ateneo because you want to grow. But growth is uncomfortable and sometimes painful. So ginaganong ko na. So once it's there, so I say, I'm not going to terrorize you, but I'm going to tell you this. If you will not, I will first call on the volunteers. But after a while, if it's the same people, I need you to grow. So I'm going to call on those who I know are too scared to recite. So sabi ko, the first time you recite, it's going to be scary. But once you've recited and you find that you're fine, that even if you make a mistake, nobody laughs at you, you're more encouraged to recite. And that's actually what happens. Ang dami kong Judenites, the first few times, nanginginig pa, and they will say this, Ma'am, I'm not sure of my answer, but I banned it. I said, do not ever start an answer with, I am not sure about my answer, but. I said, of course, you're not sure of your answer. If you're sure, you shouldn't be here in my class. So I banned these things. What do you do they tell me many times, the reason why they're scared to make mistakes is because, I'm really sorry about this, but this is what they say. I don't have a study to back me up, but this is what, not just the Judenites, this is Xavier, Ika, St. Jude, Jubilees, Kakay, it is Filipino Chinese. They say they don't want to they're scared to recite and make mistakes because if they make mistakes at the house, the parents will get mad. I said, what do you mean by they'll get mad? If they get daw an 8/10, pinapalo na raw sila, umiyak ko doon namin, guys, don't spank your kids. Spanking and palo, do you honestly think they'll be better? So that's one. So get into kids are not born to be scared to make mistakes. Look at young children. Young children are here, they experiment. They break your flower vase, they get into scrapes, they do biking, they get their knees hurt. Young children are not meant to be scared. Young children are not scared, but it is their environment that makes them scared in the first place. When they were in preschool, they were not shy. They're singing, they're dancing, they're doing teachers. Somehow when they get into elementary school, umuumpisa na, and high school, everybody's scared not to talk. So somehow we are not born scared to make mistakes. It is our culture. I think it is a Chinese culture. The Chinese culture will say, okay, everything kasi is grades. By the way, this is how I defend you to Filipino Chinese students. When they come, when they have mental health issues, I will tell them this, and don't laugh, but maybe you can laugh. I told them, your parents love you. Even if they get mad at you, if you get low marks, they still love you. I said, the way traditional, and some of us are so traditional, Chinese parents show love is they will ask you what your grades are. I said, that's the Chinese way. It doesn't mean that they hate you. It's not meant to put pressure on you. I said, it is just the Chinese culture. So it's a difference of cultures. That's how I defend you. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. The students don't like it. They actually say ito rin. What they hate most of the time would be their parents never ask them what they learn. The parents always ask them, what grade did you get? So if that is the mentality, even if you mean no harm by it, and I know you're doing it because you're worried about their performance, but the message that you give to them is all I care about is grades. I know you don't care about grades lang, but that's what they think is happening. So again, kung pwede, don't ever, mahirap kasi yung mga bata ngayon very westernized na rin, in a good way and in a bad way. So let's just not talk about grades anymore. So you can tell them directly that the only way for you to learn is to make mistakes. So anak, this is what one Ateneo family did. And this family is superb. They're not Filipino Chinese and they have no problem else. They're one of my model families. The grandfather, who's also Ateneo lahat yan, do Eagle, the grandfather always said, every time they have a family reunion, they actually pagalingan daw ng mistakes. What was the worst mistake I did from this time to this time and what did I learn from it? And the grandfather would actually celebrate, oh, si ganito, wow, ito yung ginawa niya, pero wow, ito yung, so there's some families that actually celebrate mistakes. One family lang. I don't do that. I don't celebrate mistakes. But one family I know does it. Most families hide mistakes. They hide it under the rug. Okay, so your question would be, how can you do the growth mindset? Google Carol Dweck or go to my books. I would have several articles on growth mindset for preschool and for grade school, for high school, and there are concrete ways for you to develop the growth mindset. If you don't want my book, just do Carol Dweck. Google Carol Dweck. Try to see what she says. There's some practical ways and there's some theoretical ways. And Carol Dweck herself has a good book called Mindset. It's a bit theoretical, but if you're a parent who wants to know the theory behind it, you can do that. So what you're talking about, the making mistakes, etc., that is in the psychology called the growth mindset. It's a huge topic. It's being investigated right now because around the world, American psychologists, and I think even kami, we feel this is the one thing our kids need to know. So develop the growth rather than the fearful mindset, the fearful fixed mindset. Okay, so that's it. Very good questions as usual. Sorry, I got carried away.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Queena Lichua.
2 hours, my God.
Yeah. We love
Love
it when
the
you are carried away. We love it when
love
you
the
are get
passion.
carried
Yeah,
away.
love.
You're
Yeah.
very, very good parents. I'm really sorry. I know this is difficult, but for the next one, I think it's for teachers. But if you kind of want, I can do it split. I can still do parents and teachers both if you want. The parents
Okay.
still want to know about the resilience thing. So maybe, tell me if you want to have some more parent tips pa rin. Because the growth mindset is ganyan. Kasi mahirap
That
talaga to. Pero St. Jude parents, I'm really sincere. I did not say this in the other schools. Those who will know in the ganyan. I'm still impressed at the work ethic of majority of your kids. It might not be as good as before, but you're still better off compared. So whatever you're doing, a lot of it you're doing right. So if you're doing it right, keep it up. The effort you're doing, so it's a kayo nga yung eskwelahan, hindi ko kailangan ng study habits. Kayo yung pinakamagaling sa study habits. So, you and the science high schools are the tops in study habits in the Philippines. So I would want to congratulate you on that. Okay.
Thank you very much. Before we end, may we present our certificate of appreciation to you, Dr. Queena Lichua. St. Jude Catholic School Alumni Association, St. Jude Catholic School Parents Auxiliary Group, and St. Jude Catholic School award this certificate of appreciation to Dr. Queena Lichua for sharing her expertise to the Judenite community as speaker in the webinar Queena Talks, Time Management and Study Habits in the New Normal via Zoom and YouTube Live, given this 14th of November in the year of the Lord 2020. Signed, Father Roland Aquinos, SVD, School Director, Mr. Johnny C., President, SJCS Alumni Association, Mrs. Elizabeth Cole Lim Chu, President, Early Childhood Department, Parents Auxiliary Group, Mrs. Michelle Yvonne Sean, President, Elementary Department, Parents Auxiliary Group, and Attorney Irene Phoenix Mauricio, President, High School Parents Auxiliary Group.
Queena, thank you very much. It's so amazing to stay on, as you said, for 2 hours. But you're so engaging and so passionate about the topics. It's really so fun and really enlightening to listen to you. I'm sure all the parents who are here want more sessions with you. But wala na, we'll work on schedules with you, and I think it's really been very helpful. Some things are difficult to accept, but some things are reality, right? And it's good to place it on the table. But again, thank you very much for sharing your valuable time and expertise. Sana hindi ho kayo masasawa. I think you have reached a really good set of customers who really want to continue engaging with you.
Thank you,
So
John.
you're welcome. So good luck with your other engagements. I know you're very busy. Your weekends are probably more busier than your daily routines. So thank you again, and we'll see you in the next round. We'll talk to you siguro if we start looking at whether to deviate from the original plan on only teachers. We need to talk to the school about it, para ano, and then we'll advise. All right. Have a good weekend, Queena, and have a good weekend, everybody. Stay safe, and thank you very much for joining us in this session.
Thank you.
Johnny, before we leave, can we ask for a picture taking for the group?